Beyond the noise, beyond the narratives, beyond the distractions, the search for truth continues. Welcome to the Watchman Action Network.
All right, hello and welcome back to the Carl Jackson
Your daily
Show.
dose of objective truth in a world of confusion.
We're going to be talking about that. I'm going to break it
policy,
down.
because their policies are killing people. Very important. We've got to restore sanity in America, and I think it's going to start happening. Hey, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. This is your daily dose of objective truth. This is your daily dose of objective freedom, or your daily dose of freedom, not your daily dose of objective freedom. Although I guess freedom could be. No, I guess it is subjective to some. Anyway, your daily dose of freedom in a world of lies, confusion and lies. Also, your favorite Christian conservative American that happens to be black. Guys, I got a bang up show for you today. We're going to talk about several things, but I want to start with something that's very different. Something that might throw you off guard, but I think it's important to talk about. I mean, we're family, if you will, when it comes to the conservative movement. And sometimes we have to have conversations that are uncomfortable, but that are real, because we want to make sure that freedom in this country is maintained. And there's only going to be one side right now that's advancing freedom. There's going to be one party that's advancing freedom in the United States of America as it exists right now, and that is the Republican Party. This topic, I got to tell you, I think it takes courage to talk about this topic. And so I'm honored to have my buddy back on, R.C. Williams, because I brought him on. He wrote a Substack, and I want you guys to check this out, honestly. And I'm going to share this on social media as well. But the Substack is entitled, and I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, but I want you to understand that this is all good. We all love each other, but we all want the best for Florida. We all want the best for the United States of America. Here's the title of the Substack, and we'll go from there. Byron Donalds wants to govern Florida. Voters deserve answers first. And I'm going to encourage you to read this Substack. Subscribe to this Substack, Sherlock.substack.com. No K on Sherlock. Sherlock.substack.com. Sherlock.substack.com. And I say this as a person who lives in Florida. I'm obviously a vote in Florida. And I like Byron Donalds. But we've got questions. And so, R.C. Williams, welcome back to the program.
Carl, good to be on with you again, my friend. And I guess we should preface this just a little bit, letting
Sure.
people know that you, being smart and handsome, have been so far ahead of the curve on so many things. You had us on when we talked about the Silicon Valley bank crash. And what we did for people is we connected the dots to the origin well before anybody else. We told them what was going to happen. We told them how they got out of it. And we also told them which international banking player was going to go down next as a part of that process, amongst other things, because you've had us on a number of times. So our track record and forecast here, Carl, like you said, we're not out to make enemies, but as researchers and investigative journalists, we have to call a spade a spade. If we don't call balls and strikes, then the entire constitutional republic structure no longer matters. And that was the genesis for this article. So obviously Byron Donalds is running for governor of the state of Florida. He got Trump's endorsement early on. This time last year, there seemed to be a full coronation. Normally we have primaries in the state of Florida as these things go, but there seemed to be a full coronation and Byron was on his way. Well, as these things continued, questions started to pop up, a number of questions about his history and background, his relationship with Larry Wilcox. And that is not the point of this piece. But one of the things that did come up was some of his stock trade activity with relation to the Stock Act. Now, the Stock Act in Congress calls for members of Congress to report consistently any stock trades or activity that they have. And Carl, you mentioned this while we were offline, with Polymarket and everything like that. Now you get dinged every time that Byron Donalds or his trust or however he's structured actually trades. So there were questions around the reporting cycles for Byron with his stock. And so there were things that happened. And then, well, after the fact, we find out that these things were done. So we said, let's dig in here and let's try to figure out what's going on. And here's the reason why, Carl. So Byron and his wife, Erica, are, by all accounts, experts in finance. I mean, at the CFO level, right? Obviously, they were both in the banking business. Erica has a CFO background. They ran an academy, this whole thing, right? So there's a background here in finance. And so our question was, if you purport to run the state of Florida, that is what Byron is proposing to everyone. He's like, I want to be the governor. I want to run the state of Florida for the next 4 or the next 8 years. And I have a background and expertise in finance. Our question was pretty simple. If that is indeed the case, then, and I'm working on the Sherlock big board here because I'm going to bring it up in a second. But if that is the case, then how does one miss something that is relatively straightforward, which is reporting in a timely manner, according to the Stock Act, for Congress? So as we dug in there, Carl, we found out some pretty interesting things, and I'll share them. Let me just pull up the board here. So one of the first things that we ran into is we're in the 119th session of Congress for 2025, 2026.
Right.
What we discovered is that Byron Donalds is on a number of committees and subcommittees. I'll read them off quickly. House Committee on Financial Services, Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Artificial Intelligence, Subcommittee on Financial Institutions, House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, Subcommittee on Economic Growth, Energy Policy, and Regulatory Affairs, and Subcommittee on Military and Foreign Affairs. Well, Carl, if you think about this, one of the things that's inevitably going to happen here is you're going to know a lot about what's going on with a lot, right? That's just kind of the way that it goes, right?
Lots of
so we
financial
said,
stuff, yeah. Lots of financial
right. And so we said,
committees.
look, that does not make Byron Donalds guilty of anything by any stretch of the imagination. He's serving. That's his job.
Right.
But when you start to factor in the fact that something relatively straightforward, like doing your Stock Act reporting, should happen, and it's happening late at a time where there were significant increases in his net worth, that called the question. So then it got a little bit stranger. Earlier this year, up in the Panhandle, there was a private event, and this video is linked in the Substack. Congressman Jimmy Patronis, the former CFO of the state of Florida, said the following. So Congressman Patronis, the former CFO of the state of Florida, is with Byron Donalds, introduces him at a fundraiser. They're pitching to potential donors that they are shareholders who would gain access to him, meaning Byron Donalds, the CEO, and to help steer Florida's direction. Carl, you have to ask the tough question at this point. Okay, maybe you're making an analogy in some way, but that sounds really strange, in particular in a room of wealthy people. Now, the next video that we link to actually shows Byron responding to these allegations. And what came out of it is he didn't really say much of anything, right? He kind of worked his way around it. And some of the folks that we talked to in preparing this story have said the same thing. Byron Donalds is an eloquent speaker. He knows his way around. He knows how to talk. He spends a lot of time on national media, and that's built him a reputation. But he never really answered the question. And people can go and look for themselves. So as we went down this road, we said, okay, Byron has in the past said there should be accountability for those in Congress. And so I'm going to read to you what he said on March 7th, 2022, during a Facebook Live interview. Here's what he said. Because the question was, what should happen to members of Congress who failed to comply with the Stock Act after there were reports of disclosure failures on Capitol Hill? Here is what Byron said. That's when you have to have sanctions and the House has to get real. He continued, we cannot have a situation where members are getting rich off of inside information. If they did this in the private sector, they would be heavily fined. They could potentially be jailed. The same thing has to happen with members of Congress. It's that simple. Well, rules for me and not for thee, because these very words, looking at 2024, Byron did not do these things. And there was not any uproar about the fact that he missed them, even though he said these things and purported to set the standard. Also, that he is an expert in finance. So our question came right back. It's like, if you're going to say these things, then you have to be held accountable or provide an explanation. Now, his explanation was, yeah, it may have been late, but we got it done. That's not the right answer. The timing of these things, Carl, is critical, because if you miss a gap that big, let's say that something nefarious happened with an investment that was made on his behalf, right? And we didn't know that till 4 or 5 months after the fact. And that could impact an election. There are huge ramifications, Carl, to not following the rules. Now, I know I've given you a lot, and I want to give you a chance to ask me questions on it, but this is part of what we discovered here, and we want to get more answers.
And guys, let me say this. Listen, Byron Donalds has been an excellent congressman. I want to make that emphatically clear. He's been really great being a congressman. But there are a lot of people in the state of Florida. And honestly, I know you can't tell by the polls. I get it. And I think it's because obviously he got Trump's endorsement. I haven't gone to one single Republican event where people haven't said, so many people, by the way, I wish Trump hadn't endorsed him so that we could have a real primary. Having said that, I don't know that Byron Donalds would be, I believe he would probably be a good governor. All right. He's been a great congressman, but I'm sorry. This stuff, RC, until I read your Substack, I was oblivious to how many of these committees that he sat on or subcommittees that he sat on and how many of them had to do with finance. And I'm sorry, there's allegations out there. I think questions need to be answered. I don't have a dog in this race per se. Well, all right, I take that back. I like him, but I also like Jay Collins. But I'm like, I think there should be a debate where they can hash this kind of stuff out. So this isn't, because I know a lot of people are going to get mad. Oh, you're Republicans bashing Republicans. Listen, guys, a Republican is going to be the next governor of Florida, period. But I'm sorry, it's up to people like us to make sure that we put the right leaders in place. And if there's something that's a little sketchy, I'm sorry, people need to clarify. And that includes Byron Donalds. Just because you got Trump's endorsement doesn't mean that we don't deserve to have questions answered. More with RC in a moment.
Every generation must decide whether it will recognize deceit before it becomes normal. This weekend, Salem News Channel's America 250 film series presents The Fall of Deceit, a sobering documentary on government overreach, faith under pressure, and the cost of abandoning truth. Watch Saturday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Salem News Channel.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's get back to our guest, R.C. Williams. Again, I want to encourage you to check out his Substack. He runs Watchman Action and then also Watchman Weekly. You can subscribe to the newsletter. And I just thought, I got to be honest with you, I had to bring R.C. on because there aren't a lot of people that are courageous to talk about these things. R.C. is heavily involved in the political circles here. In the Central Florida area, but not everybody is willing to speak out. And it's not like we're sitting here trying to make enemies. Again, Byron Donalds has been a great congressman, but I'm sorry, this stuff is a little crazy, and I want some clarification. I don't want anybody to become the governor of Florida that's going to fleece the office. And I'm not saying that he is, but we need to have some, we need some splaining, as
Carl,
Ricky Ricardo would say.
Yeah, can I share something with the audience?
Sure.
Because I think this is important. And we've had now to start prefacing this because we have also been critical of the Trump administration for some of the moves that they've made. Because if you don't call balls and strikes, then none of this matters. What are we even doing, right? You
Sure.
can't always be a homer. There's nothing wrong with being a fan, but you can't be a homer every single time. Here's what I want to share with people. And again, this is nothing against Byron or Erica. Juliana and I know them. This is not a personal thing. This is simply answer the question. And by the way, let me also say this before I jump into my point on that, is that Byron, Erica, both of them are welcome to come on Sherlock Exposes, Rip from the Headlines. We are the Watchman Weekly, the Watchman Brief, the Watchman Action Network whenever they want. And we will go through this entire piece and get these questions answered. We will do it. We will run it. And if it turns out that we are off in any way, we will retract or anything else that we need to do accordingly, because that's how this actually works. But this information, Carl, is out there. So let me get to this. If you do not keep your house clean, how do you expect anyone else to think that you will keep their house clean? Carl, it's critical, whether it is Byron or anybody else that wants to run to be a public servant for any office in this state, to be put under that level of scrutiny. The challenge that we have at the local, state, and federal levels is that if we don't keep an eye on the people that we send to represent our interests, I can guarantee you they will represent their interests. And that's never good for you. That much I can promise you.
And frankly, this is why I can't stand coronations. I mean, I say this as a conservative. There's a lot of people already, let's just be real, talking about 2028 and J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance may be a great president. I'm not down for a coronation. I want to see some fighting because you know what? There's going to be stuff that we may not know about. There's going to be stuff that other candidates might be better at, have better answers for. And it's important that we, the people, get those answers and we feel comfortable about the people that we're voting for. And again, if my only option is Byron Donalds, then obviously I will pick a Republican over a Democrat any day of the week and twice on Sunday. But I want the best Republican for the job. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's really as simple as that for me. So anyway, go ahead, RC. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Carl. I mean, so as we continue to go down the road, there was actually a request from one of the action groups to the government with regard specifically to Byron stock trades in relation to the Stock Act. And as you dig into that a bit more, we did not do it in this piece, but there will be a subsequent piece where we go into some of the timing of trades, in particular around technology and AI stocks. Because one of the things that happened, we were able to discover that there was an investment in what you would call a picks and shovels type of AI company at a convenient time that had a very large appreciation right before one of the AI advocacy groups made a donation to the Donalds campaign. Now, it is difficult to say that these two things correlate. But Carl, if you think about that logically for a second, the timing on these things is incredible. And it is interesting to me, and this isn't just Byron, by the way, there are 434 other members of the House and there are 100 members of the Senate who all eat at the same trough. The only group who knows everything that's going on still refuses to govern themselves when it comes to this issue. Now, all of a sudden, by the way, as we're doing the show yesterday, Byron came out and said that he is all for the Insider Trading Act for Congress and he's going to vote yes on it and he's proud to do so. And my response was simple. That's great. What took so long? Why is it taking so long for Congress to regulate or govern themselves? And by the way, while you're at it, you should probably work on Polymarket and Kalshi because those are the biggest insider trading markets probably in the history of the world, which is why, Carl, you get dinged every time somebody trades.
That and Nancy Pelosi stock trader. I gotta admit, they do a fabulous
She's a master,
job.
Man. She's a master at this.
Well, here's the thing with Nancy Pelosi stock trader. If you follow them on X, all right, it's not just Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi, whatever, they make trades, but it's not just them. Initially, when I subscribed and I followed and I got their dings, I assumed it was just Nancy, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna copy what Nancy Pelosi does. It's everybody on the Hill. There were some Republicans whose names were dinged right before a bill or something was presented to them. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. People that I would have never imagined. Guys, it is insane up on the Hill. So many of them are getting rich off of us, which I got to give Lindsey Graham props. I wasn't a big Lindsey Graham fan. I hate to say this, but it's true. I'm a bigger Lindsey Graham fan now after his passing, learning some of the things about him that I frankly never knew about his life. But one of the most impressive things to me, RC, was that this man was in Washington, D.C. for over 30 years and was worth, 1.4, 1.5 million? That is unheard of. It's sad to say that is unheard of. Whether you agree with him or not, that is a man that understood his role, that liked his job, that liked serving the people, and he didn't go there to get rich. Frankly, making 174, I mean, it wasn't always that, 174 or close 180. I'm not even sure what senators make nowadays, to be honest with you. But over a stretch, I think he was in the House for 8 years and then in the Senate, the upper chamber, for over 20 years. I'm like, frankly, that's really bad investing, even at that pay scale. I mean, he just doing basic investing, he should have had more than that, which tells me he wasn't in it for the money, but so many of them are.
Carl, they are, and it's hard, right? It's hard to resist that. But I'll spill a little bit of tea here because I think the audience deserves to understand it. It doesn't matter whether you go to the state house in any state, pick your state, or you go to the feds. As you come in, they tell you how it's going to go. When you're a freshman, you get orders. And especially at the federal level, one of the big ones is you're given a fundraising number and you do whatever it takes, because if you don't hit that number, no committee assignments for you, no favorite for you, no bills moved for you. Your entire job is to raise as much money as possible for the party apparatus. And in that, you start to get the things that you want. And so when you think about it, Carl, all of that, it's like the streets are lined with milk and honey. If you do the job, using a wrestling analogy, then in turn, you'll be given favor, you'll get insight on things, right? So it's difficult to resist, but this goes back to something as we just celebrated the 250th, Carl. Benjamin Franklin, the other founding fathers, all talked about eternal vigilance. They said, if you do not watch the people you send to represent you, you will end up in the situation that we're in today. And Carl, listen, it becomes difficult when the leadership in the nation doesn't follow basic rules and standards. Divestiture from your interests is one of the most important things you can do as a public servant. The higher the profile, the further away you need to be from those things, because it becomes very easy, whether you are a congressman who has a high profile, a senator who has a high profile, or you're in the executive branch or the Supreme Court or anything like that. Every time you open your mouth, you move the markets. And then people start to ask hard questions. Are you doing it for your own gain? Which is why historically the standard has been to divest yourself from those things and put a firewall up so that you don't know what's happening for this exact reason. But Carl, it goes back again to the fact that my question, and we've got a laundry list of questions we can get to in a minute for constituents to ask Byron Donalds when they see him. Why hasn't Congress regulated themselves against the very thing that makes them entirely incestuous? What has taken so long for us to get to this point? What public servant in their right mind doesn't say, you know what? My constituents don't want me using inside information. They want a firewall around it. I can appreciate that. And in an effort to keep getting reelected or not go to jail, I think I'm going to go ahead and vote for that because it makes total and absolute sense. My question, as it is on any number of things, is what's taking you so long? And if people really start asking that question, Carl, and they don't let up until they get an answer, you'll see the roaches scurry like the lights came on.
And frankly, I'm not convinced that this thing get passed, but I hope that it will. And I agree with you. R.C. Williams, listen, I appreciate your courage. I appreciate you coming on. Guys, I do want to encourage you again. Check out his Substack, Sherlock.substack.com. Sherlock.substack.com. No K there. And honestly, it's just a fabulous site. Finances, politics, and God, where you can get involved. I mean, they do so much work at Watchmen and Watchmen Action. RC, thank you so much for all you do, man. God bless you.
Appreciate you, Carl.